Good morning.
I'm Diana.
Hi, Diana.
Nice to meet you.
I'm
Diana.
Brian.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi,
Shaker. Nice to meet
Brian.
you, Diana.
Brian.
Hello everyone. So Team Tango, you will have 20 minutes to present your solution to the judges. You will be given a warning when 5 and 10 minutes remain. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately. No information will be considered after 20 minutes. After 20 minutes has lapsed. Following your presentation, there will be a 10 minutes question and answer. You will be given a warning when it's 2 minutes remaining. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes. You may start whenever you're ready.
Amazing. Okay, and then just a quick question: is this the device we use?
Sorry.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
You want to put that aside?
This is Tango?
Yeah,
Tango.
we are the Tango. Okay, that's gonna be after the presentation.
Is that after? Okay.
Hopefully, we'll see.
Hopefully.
All right. So one more time before we start the presentation. My name is Harris Krabasik,
I'm Diana Ibrahimova.
I'm Kami Monda.
And I'm Gurpreet Singh.
and today our case analysis we have named the gray area AI, which shortly we'll find out. So as we have, okay, does this work? Okay, I think. Okay. So as we approached this case study, it became more and more apparent to us that the alternatives presented in the initial case documents weren't really a matter of accept or reject, but more how we can incorporate these IT automations into a greater, newer, and stronger framework for IT automation. The first step that we really took in this analysis was to go ahead and research as much as we could about Mastercard as a company. Thank you. As a company. And really shortly, we have figured out that IT automation and specifically artificial intelligence within Mastercard wasn't really a new topic or anything out of the blue. Mastercard has really been significantly putting in both investment in terms of time and capital into developing AI software to better its operations and everyday work. Some of the areas in which they have developed artificial intelligence would be cracking down on fraudulent activities, stopping down falsified transactions, so the transactions which get declined falsely, even though there's nothing about them to be declined, and general customer performance. So we have noted 4 main types of IT automation software which possesses the most potential in today's increasingly global and interconnected world. The first one of these will be robotic process automation, or commonly called as RPA. What this software constitutes is basically automizing repetitive actions which were formerly done by humans. We can already see this being implemented in areas such as accounting and data import, primarily. Now the limitation with robotic process automation is it can only work within its parameters that were designed to in their programming. So it doesn't really allow for much variation apart from that. The second IT automation process will be natural language processing. And this, again, is very widespread today as itself, mostly in industries such as customer service, sales, but then also cybersecurity. Now what natural language processing allows the software is to understand and effectively communicate with the speech and text imported from the humans. So it can then adapt and find solutions. And it's really been implemented in AI for fraudulent activities with Mastercard, and they have really upped their security in terms of that. It's been really successful, and all of these can be found within Mastercard's AI activities. But our proposal, which I'll shortly get into, and you will see, we think it's really great, and I think you will like it as well too. The third IT automation software is fit for purpose automation. This, again, is also limited to parameters and the activity it's programmed for. This software allows for specific business tasks to be completed by the software. So only one business objective at a hand. And that will be its biggest limitation. Now, the fourth IT automation option is artificial intelligence. And at the same time, it's the most important one that we base our analysis solution on. And the reason why is because although the first 3 are automation software, the fourth one, artificial intelligence, is not simply automation, it is autonomous software. in the sense that it can understand data, it can collect it on itself, it can overcome objectives, and then it can provide solutions. It can not only do that, but also provide patterns which human brain and eye cannot effectively and easily see as something else. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Mastercard has already greatly invested in developing AI software and these different automation processes. So it already has a lot of data, it's proven to have been successful. What we propose then is to incorporate all of these four to create a greater AI, an AI which is then able to collect data from already existing AIs with their data, which is limited to the tasks that they're doing, such as activities, fraudulent activities, and improving customer satisfaction, and then gather all of that data and analyze it at a superior level, which will then allow greater insight into not only revenue earning activities, which is of course a great benefit, but then also improving customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and the reputation and credibility of our company, in this case, Mastercard. We really think that there's a lot of potential, and the long-term and short-term benefits are really amazing. And Diana, my colleague, is going to talk more about the benefits of that.
So we have created some specific strategies. One of the strategies is an app. I'm not really sure how to pull it up.
Can you give?
Yeah.
You can do for her.
Okay.
Do you want to put it up on the laptop? No, that one's not working.
Well, oh yeah. I'm sorry.
We're having some technical difficulties, I hope you don't mind. Yeah. It was much easier when we were on our computers, then you can just kind of
there we
press
go.
it back and forth.
So we did look at certain studies about consumers. One specific study we found is the U.S. consumer payment study, and that has shown us that 63% of consumers are currently using banking apps. So we looked at that data and we thought, how can we incorporate AI into the app strategy? So Mastercard could work with an issuer such as a bank, such as Chase or any other bank that we want to work with, and create an app for consumers where consumers can use this app to see transparency on the data AI is collecting. So artificial intelligence is collecting all this data on consumers, certain patterns and behaviors consumers are making. For example, if a consumer goes to Target at least 3 times a week, AI would be able to detect this by looking at their recent transactions and seeing like where they spend their money. They could communicate this to the consumer and say, look, we see that you spend three transactions a week at Target. We know you like it because of it, and we are going to give you a personalized reward, which would be a 5% cash back at Target for the next month. So here, what AI is doing is they're creating trust and building reputation, which is really important for the consumer because there's been so many privacy information breaches with Facebook, as many of you know. And consumers are really worried about where their information is going. How is this bank finding out that I like Target? But AI through Mastercard would be able to show the consumer exactly what they're doing, and also based on the same study by the U.S. consumer payment, consumers do say that they do prefer especially personalized rewards to their taste, where Target would come in, and let's say a consumer goes somewhere else, then AI would be able to pick that up as well. So all the rewards and all the coupons and promotions would be personalized based on consumer spending where they already go. Another thing that Mastercard could add in the app is voice activation. Here I added a chart from the same study. It's saying that a lot of consumers do prefer to use voice activation to make purchases and payments. It would just make things easier. They go on the app, they would be able to say, pay my bill, and then the app would just do it for them instead of going through all the clicking. One thing this is good for is because MasterCard's already implementing the whole Apple thing with Touch ID and Face ID, something that they've been implementing, as you know, in the past month. So here, it's already a secure system where once the consumer opens the app, they will be able to use their Face ID or their Touch ID to get in, and then that would verify that it is the consumer, and then they will be able to do all these things, such as pay bills, shop, view recent transactions, check balances through voice activation. So it would be a lot more easier. So while both of these things they could provide revenue for the company, they also improve customer satisfaction, which is outside of the money part of the solution. A way this could be measured is looking at consumer feedback year by year. Let's say after 1 year of using the transparency, personalized rewards, or voice activation, we can ask a customer, how have you been enjoying the service on a scale of 1 to 5? Any improvements you can make. Also, the AI system itself could track usage that the consumer is making, track to see which rewards they're clicking on, which stores they see that they go to, and the personalized rewards that pop up for them, which ones do they use, which coupons do they use, and how often they use that voice activation to see, is this really something the consumer is actually enjoying, and is it really making their experience easier. Another thing that is outside of the revenue point is employee satisfaction and employee benefitation from the AI. So a lot of studies that we've done have shown that employees perform better, they like to be recognized for contributions, and they like having a voice in the workplace. So while AI is finding all these patterns, it's looking into to see what the consumer is doing, what the consumer is liking, what the consumer is not liking, tapping into the markets where more things could be solved. AI itself could find these issues, and then the employees could build teams within offices and compete to solve these issues. So this creates strategic planning for employees themselves. This includes more involvement from the employees. Their voices are really being heard. They're able to voice their solutions, really work in teams, which would make them like going to work, make them like going to Mastercard. And also, all these strategies could also be measured during management meetings. I know Mastercard has quarterly management meetings, so if the employees meet with their manager, the manager could create a type of survey or questionnaire and also ask about the satisfaction. Are you enjoying doing these team building activities? What would you change? And again, this is a good benefit outside the revenue standpoint.
So we know that Mastercard is already present in 48 countries in Africa out of the 55. So a good way to take this forward is to have a collab. All of these countries have a pay-as-you-go system where if a consumer wants to buy, say, a solar light system for 5,000 shillings in Kenya, for example, they can pay 1,000 shillings at first and unlock that system for a month. And then as they go, it's basically like an installment plan, but the product gets locked after each month of usage. So Mastercard can do a collaboration and use pay-as-you-go, as most of these countries still use mobile money or cash to do their transactions, and this can help the consumers by having flexibility and help them afford those products to increase their quality of life, and then at the same time build trust. So as all of Africa is an emerging market right now, as we all know. So as all other companies move to Africa, if people know that Mastercard is there and is trusted by the consumers, they would use them as their issuer, and it would also help build credit for people in Africa. Then also another way that improves the quality of life is, for instance, if a farmer buys a solar light home system, it would affect so many aspects of their life. Their children would be able to study at night, they would be able to spend more time with their families, they would just have a better sense of belonging, and AI can also track the progress and how their quality of life has improved and we're going to do a 1 year, 5 year, and 10 year spending of individuals and see how they constantly improve their quality of life.
When we looked into SWOT analysis of Mastercard, we also implemented AI with it. So there were multiple strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with it. And the strengths that we saw were competitive advantage, like Mastercard already has a competitive advantage with safety that they're providing their customers. And they're also providing early detection and future threats to the AI since the software is working day and night. And to that, there's also long-term investment included in that. If you're paying right now more for the AI, it can reduce the margin of error in the future. The weaknesses would be cost implementing, limited employee and skills, which Daniel already talked about briefly, and limited sample population since we're already looking at the sample of Mastercard users. The opportunity, however, is expand customers. We're reducing staff we're not actually reducing staff, but we're putting staff in another sector that's only concentrating on AI-focused analyses. And then if there's anything happening around in AI, that's the team that's going to be working with that. And then also marketing, as Diana has mentioned, with promoting and couponing and like gaining the trust of customers. The threats will be included like system shutdowns and cyber threats like hacking and money laundering. This has not occurred since Mastercard already has softwares that are preventing that. But there's also reputational threats like leakage of information. Customers and clients value their information a lot, and thus it's very important to concentrate on that. And however, this could be turned into a strength because we have researched and found out that customers, if they know what is happening to their information, they would not mind if that information is shared. And then there's also a change in law. Recently, the European laws have been changed in past May 2018 that the customers are very aware what is happening to their information, and businesses are to play at the same level, so they cannot go above or
beyond. So here we just included a chart just to go over everything we've talked about, all the benefits and all the measurements to measure those benefits. The one thing that we added in this chart is reputational benefits. By having all these other benefits, Mastercard will grow its market value and market share, and we can look and measure it by looking again at the 1, the 5, and the 10-year mark. While this AI is a great investment, we do think it's worth it in the long run, because especially with AI Express and decision intelligence that Mastercard's already using, they do see improved progress. I know last year the United States was losing about $118 billion yearly based on false declining of cards. And because Mastercard has implemented these other AIs, they've cut that cost by 50%. So I think that while right now it's an investment, in the future it will pay off just like previous AI intelligences have. So our recommendations for Mastercard would be to build a greater AI by uniting different IT automation software, and this will allow better employee engagement, more transparency, and additional credibility and reputation that we've already talked about. So now we would like to open the floor up for your questions as well.
Could you go back to the slide where you had the one before this one? Yeah, just thanks for the presentation of the one after that.
Okay, with this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So, with this, based on, are you targeting, this is all looking at it from Mastercard perspective, or are you looking at it from customers of Mastercard perspective, or which of the 4 entities that are part of the whole, value network for Mastercard is this targeted towards?
I think things like consumer satisfaction, that could be targeting the consumer itself, also the merchant and the issuer. I mean, if a bank like Chase is an issuer and they work with Mastercard to see these patterns that consumers are making, they would also be making more money by offering these rewards. They would also be building their credibility as well, and also the customer is benefiting from this because they see that the rewards are personalized just for them. And like we've said before, consumers do like when their rewards are personalized. Also, Mastercard would benefit from this because, again, they're building their reputation and building that trust and showing that transparency, especially with the new EU laws that Preet has mentioned. Transparency is a big thing for the consumers. Also, with employee engagement, Mastercard, I think, would benefit the most for sure because Mastercard employees would like to come to work. They, like you said, there's studies that show that employees like to have their voices heard, so I think that this would definitely benefit the employees of Mastercard a lot. Improved quality of life, definitely the consumer, I think. Like Kamya was mentioning, since consumers would be able to use this payment as you go system and see that Mastercard's like helping them, I think one, their lives would improve, and also the credibility of Mastercard would improve as well.
And I would like to briefly add on that. The existing AIs that we have within Mastercard usually are focused on a certain aspect or a certain branch of dealings within the company. Now, what we're trying to do with this graph, and happened with the previous slides, or actually table, is to show that our AI, the greater AI as we call it, would then benefit not only in certain branches, but in all the branches together. So it would gather us more insight into everything. So by then, you asked how does it benefit the company or the customers more? It would benefit the customers in the sense that they would have more trust. They're going to believe that our transactions are going to be perhaps faster, more efficient, safer, definitely. From the side of the company, then our employees are going to be heard in the sense that AI, based on the surveys, questionnaires, and quarterly, of course, perhaps after a year, 2 years, depending on how the AI is implemented, the AI is going to see patterns within these answers and then suggest changes, perhaps in the management system, perhaps in the administrative system. Based off of that, when these changes are implemented, over time, we're going to see increase in satisfaction of the employees. Of course, we know from personally, because I study finance and international business, I know that business environment is a huge impact on the performance and effectiveness of the workers. So then if they feel heard, and if they feel like what they say really matters to both management and the dealings of the company, then immediately their performance is going to go up. And an increase in performance is not only going to be represented in increase of earnings eventually, but then also in the customer satisfaction. And this can go everywhere from the primary levels, where you have the customer service over the phone. If the employees are happier with their job, whether it be salary or just how they feel comfortable in the environment, immediately the way they communicate on a daily basis to the customers is going to have a huge impact on the actual customer's view of the employees, but the company, because the employees are representative of the company as a whole. And so this is really to say the benefits of AI and the technology today is that it doesn't really incorporate certain aspects, it incorporates all of them together. And that's what we're trying to stress, that of course, AI as a software for automation and autonomy is nothing new for Mastercard. But the level at which we incorporate the AIs of our suggestion is greater than what we already have. Unless, of course, Mastercard is developing something and not telling us, which is highly possible. But yeah, we definitely do think that this would over time prove to be very, very beneficial. And during the presentation, since we were limited by time, only 24 hours, there was really a lot of more data that we could gather. But because of this kind of time constraint, we're kind of limited to make what we have, and of course, both in research constraint and the amount of time we have to present. So we kind of crammed a lot of it together, but I'm sure you can tell by now there's a lot of prospect in this. And we are sure that apart from short-term benefits, the costs are definitely going to be high, but the outcomes and the benefits in the short-term and long-term are going to way overcome the short-term costs. And not only in the terms of financial costs, but if you think about other companies, just as Mastercard is thinking about implementing AI software, other competitors, such as Visa, and in other industries, definitely they're already implementing AI software. So then the question is, how can we make ourselves better than the competitors? Just as we are suggesting emerging markets, Africa, for example, South America, other companies are doing the same thing. So we have to figure out how can we employ what we already have until new technology, of course, is developed, to even further put ourselves among the competitors. And we definitely think in the short term, we have certain emerging markets such as South America and particularly Southeast Asia is right now rising. Africa is getting there. I think Mastercard operates in 50 countries in Africa. I think that was a detail. I might be wrong. 40? Okay, my bad. And over time, once Africa generally, both economically and technologically, increases and gains access to Mastercard and has a need for buying purchases or getting purchases done, having software like this, which can find patterns, the short term, and accumulate them over time, so that in 50 years, when Africa, the emerging market, wherever it may be, reaches a point where investment is possible, Mastercard will be ready, as opposed to our competitors who may not, per se, have this mindset, and then we're going to have the competitive advantage. And that's where the real benefits come in. And of course, by that time, we don't know how the flow of technology is going to develop. New technologies are going to come. But if our AI is able to include all segments as opposed to single segments, it is then going to be more able to adapt to the new technology and perhaps incorporate the new technology to do the same thing like the current greater AI. Perhaps you can have a greater AI number 2 in 50 years who's going to be able to incorporate this data. So instead of having to do collection on certain areas individually, you kind of add on to it.
I have a question. The Keith's question was more of how do you build a framework for making decisions. You pivoted more to, we made a decision, AI is the answer, and the next step. Why did you make that pivot?
Well, There's two main reasons that I can think of right now. Of course, time constraint, I've already kind of mentioned them, so I'm not going to use them again, although they are definitely a reason. Two of the main reasons would be that we are finance majors and international business major, which might sound like a disqualifier, but if we research how to make a plan, then of course every firm has an IT department which is specialized in making this dealing. So if we provide sort of an insight how they might do it and what we expect it to do, the IT department can definitely take over based on what we suggest and the research that we have done and incorporate that decision. Now, of course, when we were making the decision, we could have said definitely the natural language processing would be the option for what we aim for. And so by researching those four options that I had a slide on, we kind of figured that, oh yes, although these individuals' options could prove to be beneficial, and they already are implemented in certain areas, like I mentioned, incorporating them together, from what we know, could then definitely prove to be a greater outcome. And that's why we're more focused on the general outcomes and the potential benefits that we can have, which then also ties into investment of money, the short-term investment. Would be greater because of the scope of this project. So then the IT department would, in any case, have to have a greater investment built into it. I'm not sure if this kind of answers your question, but
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
So one of the things that you touched on was globalization, which I like.
Mhm.
But did you have any consideration for on soil? So you're talking about the global AI, and with global AI challenges, we have on soil limitations. Did you give that any consideration? Where we can't share data, move data back and forth?
Well, we definitely, I think, mentioned Facebook and what's happening in the European Union. So although globalization definitely affects in the local political situations in these countries, but if you look at the United States, I think we can again make the argument with Facebook, it's really recently been active, in terms of data sharing and how we deal with data. In the case study papers that we received, there was a line of text in the very end which mentioned how Mastercard has direct insight into details of the transaction. So not only the time and place when they're used, but then also the actual goods that are being produced. Now, as long as, of course, terms of use customers have to sign when they get the card, so they kind of accept it if they do proceed along with it. But as long as Mastercard abides by those rules and doesn't share the information, then political and legal constraints shouldn't really be a problem. Now, we definitely can think of them as laws do change over time.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, they definitely do. So I can assume that it definitely is a struggle to go around them. But as much as it globally is incorporated, I'm sure that domestically also can be. 2 minutes? Okay, and then I can also slightly add to that more. You mentioned domestic markets. The United States currently has the highest GDP. China is after that. So, and United States is by far the greatest exporter of services, of high-tech services, and financial services being one of the high-tech. So then, if we utilize the global AI, and then gather the intelligence from elsewhere, but then utilize it domestically, because most of these firms do eventually get services from us, statistically speaking, then we can definitely benefit both domestically and internationally. Which even more confirms our case that a greater AI would then be definitely the solution for both short-term and definitely long-term investment.
I think just to add on to that too, Preet has mentioned that Mastercard would invest in like a team that would specialize just in AI. So maybe expand that a little bit more and have certain teams based on parts of the world and to different government types that would look at the government rules and look at different regulations and kind of work within different parts of the world and really specialize in that. I think that could also be a good addition to what Harris was saying, because that could avoid some of the regulations and different laws.
No questions?
Thank you.
Well, again, before we finish this, I know we just have 1 minute. We really want to thank you for both your time and trusting us with the information that you've given. We really have learned a lot from this, especially knowing that we don't have an IT background. Researching and learning about IT as well as other financial was really great. So really thank you. And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Thank you. It was very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.